Catus, Maximus here, this time with a little review of these Harbor Freight nylon abrasive brush wheels. So, kind of like the video yesterday of the polishing wheels, these are kind of a cross between those buffing wheels and an actual wire wheel. A little safer than a wire wheel, a little bit more flexibility on the nylon brushes, and they just make string with the nylon and inject essentially sandpaper grit into it so that throughout the body of the nylon strings. Once again, many times for this particular application, wire brushes do work a bit better, particularly stainless steel ones. But these will get in the tighter spaces and actually are a lot safer. $3 a piece. Let me cut these open here. Interestingly enough, the older Warrior ones have an actual safety instruction sheet with it, and the newer style ones do not. Now, as far as I know, the newer style ones are better build quality, and they're essentially the same price, and they're just a different color, but apparently they are the same grit. And what I mean by build quality is when I was looking at these on the shelf, one of the issues that I was running into repeatedly was that on these red ones, there'd be many of the fibers that were just random lengths. Some were really long, some were really short. It was actually pretty surprising. Also, the other surprising thing about these is the fact that the little wheel was basically, and see, this already has one defect. So here's one string that's just kind of off in a random direction. But it seems that what was happening is that Harbor Freight is just dropping the Warrior name and just doing more kind of plain packaging with a real special graphics. And these wheels seem to be just a little bit better quality. There is one long brush right there, but they just a little bit better build quality. So they rate these for maximum 4,500 RPM, and that's just because of the forces that are involved. Going too fast, some people do get away with running these way faster than 4,500 RPM. But you do have to be careful because even though these are plastic, if you spin these too fast, when these things come off, they still can hurt, and always wear eye protection. So anyway, that's one of the reasons I got this Milwaukee. I think DeWalt and a couple other companies still sell these, but they're pretty rare these days, and that is these high-speed quarter-inch drills. This is a Milwaukee 0101-02. It's actually harks back. Quarter-inch drills are one of the very first drills Milwaukee started making. A long time ago. Story is the quarter-inch hole shooter is actually a tool specifically requested by the Ford Motor Company for all the holes they were drilling for their manufacturing. And then what really pulled Milwaukee through is all the tool manufacturing during World War II. So that's why it has such a low model number, 0101-20. 4,000 RPM. We'll give this little one a shot here. Yeah, it's obvious this blue one is a different company because the ring is different, and I'm actually noticing on the bottom, you can see here where they have these bristles that are, several bristles that are just too short. Be careful of the red ones. They really are. They're even such bad quality, even Harbor Freight themselves had to switch vendors. Anyway, God, that vise on that block of wood is still pretty heavy. I'm going to give it a shot. I did the buffing wheel on this side of this nut, so I'll give a shot on that surface with this nylon bristle, and then we got a bolt there too, and we'll see if pressing hard, if we can get the plastic to actually get in between those threads there. Alright, let's see how this works out. Definitely can see the harshness of the abrasive as a sandpaper. It does not leave it. So they advertise these as getting rid of rust and that type of stuff, and I certainly believe that. And the bristles don't quite get down into the corners tight enough either. Let me show you. So that's what those buffing wheels, so they essentially have a much finer grit as well, and then the way the fibers kind of polish and smooth things out. Also, the buffing wheel proves that since it's soft and squishy, it can get right down into these, right down in that sharp corner. So where's that other surface? There we go. As you can see here, this does pretty well, but the coarse bristles can't quite get right down in that corner, which is surprising a buffing wheel can. And then you can just see it actually, you know, they advertise the blue one at least as being 150 grit. So they're definitely more aggressive than a buffing wheel. It might be something you quickly use to knock off the paint, and then you'd use a buffing wheel on it. I don't have a good feeling about how well it's going to work getting in between the threads, and I realize the nylon is so stiff, but we'll just clean up the head of this bolt here. I should mention the lifetime. I was reading online, and it really does depend on, just like the buffing wheels, how you use these. If you use these light and are just working on the ends, you can get quite a bit of life out of these. If you're trying to deburr or work with a lot of sharp edges, then they can really chew these wheels up, and they can wear out very quickly. Kind of nice to use a variable speed drill too, just because you can get just a little bit more control. And you can see if you go real slow, then you can actually get just a little bit more pressure because it doesn't want to kick out of the way so easily. That should be about as polished as this little bolt's going to get, or I should say sanded. It's pretty warm. And yeah, that does work pretty decently. I'll have to put a little bit more effort into that. The biggest issue really is that those bristles don't get into super tight places. But they certainly do work pretty well, even when you don't even when you're running at a lower speed. So anyway, it's been a long time, and I thought I had some nylon wheels in my little collection, but I didn't. And I guess it's really just because it seems many times I either want a buffing wheel or I want a straight up wire wheel, which will get in, the tiny wires do get into tighter spaces. But buying these, I will end up using them because they're kind of nice for wider surfaces and just more kind of rough removal. And they are cheaper for the amount of material you're removing than any type of buffing wheel, that's for sure. And they do decrease the danger from wire wheels. I mean, wire wheels, the big issue is when you get forceful on them or when they're getting worn out, that those wires fatigue and start throwing themselves and end up with little wires everywhere. And sometimes, man, they can come out with force and even stick into you. Anyway, as far as a cheap plastic nylon brush, I think the Harbor Freight Warriors are probably okay. Just try to order yourself the newer ones versus these older ones, which are a bit more inconsistent. And as far as the fiber rigidity, yeah, the blue one, it seems like they're just a little bit softer, just a little bit more pliable than these really rigid red ones. So Harbor Freight has decided to improve them, so I think generally they're okay. And if the red ones do this well, then these will only do a little bit, you know, they'll do a tiny bit better, but it's nice to see that, you know, at least for once out of Harbor Freight. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing to my cringy little channel here. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.